Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It's our Monday, April 8th, 2024 meeting. Could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the members of the commission that are here this evening. To my immediate right is James Fitzsimmons, commission member. Next to Jim is Jeff Cohan, also a commission member. To my immediate left is J.P. Vanoit, who is the vice chairperson of the commission. Next to J.P. is Steve Allenson. Next to Steve is David Parent, an alternate. And next to Dave is Joe Sanders, who's also an alternate. At the staff table to my left is Cheryl Ann Tubby, our recording secretary, and next to Cheryl Ann is Kevin Pagini, who is our town planner. And I'm Jim Seichter, the chairperson of the commission. Before I get to our first order of business, which is consideration of to approve the minutes of the March 11th meeting, just one quick announcement. There's one item on our agenda that's not going to be heard this evening, which is number 4. It's a re-subdivision under 830G, Sunwood Development Corp., 1136 Durham Road. There's no action being taken on that as the applicant is yet to receive wetlands approval, and it's been the commission's position that we don't take up an application until an application, if it needs wetlands approval, it receives the approval. So it brings us to first item is consideration of the minutes of our March 11th, 2024 meeting. Any commission members, any questions on the minutes? If there's none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve our minutes dated March 11th, 2024.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And Mr. Benoit abstains. That brings us to our first order of business. It's continuation of a public hearing for a zone change from R18 to DD40, Lost and Found Ventures, LLC, 10 Mansion Road. And Mr. Allison, if you would please note all additional correspondence for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have correspondence to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Judith Williams. We have a document entitled Daily Westbound Speeds, printed date 2/4/24. Looks to be 9 pages. Also includes additional data. I apologize for the page number. It's more than 9 pages, significantly. Document entitled Updated Memorandum to the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission from Save Mansion Creek LLC, dated April 4th, 2024. A map noting locations 1, Wallingford, Connecticut, A-1498. And a map noting locations 1 and 2, Wallingford, Connecticut, A-1498. And I believe that is all additional information.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. And at this point in time, I'll turn it over to the applicant. As I recall, we opened the public hearing in January. At that point in time, you were not prepared to make a presentation on the application, but you wanted to give members of the public an opportunity to I guess, voice their questions, comments, concerns, which they'll also be allowed to do this evening after you make your presentation. So with that, we'll turn the meeting over to you. If you please introduce yourself and begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For your record, my name is Dennis Senaviva. I'm an attorney with the Senaviva Law Firm, 721 Broad Street in Meriden. I represent the owner and applicant. To my left is Joe Flamini, a member of the applying applicant LLC. A good summary, Mr. Chairman, of the last time we were here back in January of 2024. Just by way of why we're here, this may be something familiar to you. I'm sure you've looked at your staff notes and some recollections of the previous history. This property, the applicant, Mr. Flamini, through his company, signed a purchase and sale agreement on September 21st, 2022, to purchase this property in the abutting parcel at 8 Mansion Road. That purchase was conditioned on a zone change by the seller for both parcels to DD40. You may recall that 8 Mansion Road, otherwise known as 0 South Turnpike Road, is zoned DD40, and a portion of 10 Mansion Road, the piece before you tonight, is zoned DD40. The balance of it is zoned R18. We were here on March 13th, 2023, having filed the application, made a presentation to you. That zone change was granted unanimously by this commission. And from that approval, no appeal was filed. The applicant then closed on the property on May 4th, 2023, having obtained the conditional zone change under his purchase and sale agreement, used his life savings to move forward with this proposal. We've met with the town planner several times up to that point. Mr. Flamini retained an engineer, soil scientist, traffic engineer, and an attorney, this office, at an expense for the applicant. We went forward and obtained wetlands approval on October 4th, 2023. That was after a lengthy presentation, several hearings, and again, that is based upon the fact that there was a zone change, changing both the entire parcel that was partially DD40 to entirely DD40 from R18. Later, during the preparing for the site plan application, the Corporation Council concluded that and submitted a memorandum to this commission indicating that the failure of the town to file a copy of the zoning map and zoning amendment with the town clerk made that particular zone change void, which, as it turns out, apparently that was the process before your current planner. It's my understanding, and perhaps the planner can confirm this, that no zone changes or zone amendments were ever filed with the town clerk. In any event, we're here now. We've refiled this zoning application. Now we're before you with the same application that was presented on March 13th of 2023. It is the same presentation, if I might, Mr. Chairman. Basically, the property, 10 Mansion Road, is 25,564 square feet in size. It is located west of, again, it's either 0 South Turnpike Road, and sometimes it's known as 8 Mansion Road. It's the corner lot on Mansion and South Turnpike. Now, 10 Mansion Road has a long history of some zone changes that have been provided, I think, in some of the memos that you've received from staff and from our earlier records. It reflects the property was zoned as CA40 in 1976. In 2002, the western portion of the land that includes this parcel and 12 Mansion Road was zoned R18, which eventuated with the creation of 12 Mansion Road as a 23,102 square foot residential lot, and 10 Mansion Road, the piece in question before you, as a 25,564 square foot lot of record with the zoning line identifying two different zoning districts, bisecting it north to south. So this is a piece of land, one lot, two zones. The eastern portion of this lot is zoned DD40, as I pointed out, and you've seen it on our application. It's up on the board on our map. The remaining parcel east of 10 Mansion Road, the piece immediately contiguous to the east, is zoned DD40. Now, as presented in March of 2023, we made the presentation to you that there are two compelling arguments for approving the zone change application. The first, that is, this parcel, if rezoned, would be merged with 8 Mansion Road, otherwise known as 0 South Turnpike Road, thereby allowing a better site for a DD40 development, particularly given some of the challenges to the site itself, some of the restrictions. And as we pointed out in March of 2023, there are a number of permitted uses within that DD40 zone. You're probably more familiar with them than I am, but certainly there are site plan permitted uses. There's 14 of them, including businesses, restaurants, stores, shops, barbershops, et cetera. So that was the first argument, again, the fact that this would be compatible with many of the non-residential developments in that area. You know, across the street on South Turnpike, you've got commercial operations, you've got the credit union, you've got other non-residential uses in that neighborhood, especially along the frontage. And the second, of course, reason we gave was that this parcel is bifurcated by 2 zoning districts, which devalues the property, since the 2 zoning districts provide for mutually exclusive uses. The R18 allows single-family residential, the DD40 commercial. The effect of the denial is to reduce or devastate the value of the property, which could rise certainly to a confiscation. Now, again, you know far better than I that when you consider zone change, you're working in your legislative capacity, and under Section 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statutes, you're supposed to look and consider your plan of conservation and development as one of the main factors in making your decision. And this application, if approved, will be consistent with Chapter 2 of that POCD, which advocates growing Wallingford's economic base and attracting diverse businesses. This would be an excellent opportunity to take this otherwise fallow piece of land and bring it into a vibrant use for the town of Wallingford. Now, in 2023, we did submit a traffic report just to sort of rebut some of the information that was provided to this commission relative to traffic. But again, I'm not going to propose that tonight because this is not a site plan application. It's not a special permit application. It is a zone change application. So the fact that Mr. Flamini may have a specific use in his mind is really not relevant to the issue of a zone change. Again, as you know far better than I. So if approved, it could be developed in any way consistent with your Section 4.11 of your regulations. It's my information, at least my understanding, that nothing has changed from your original vote back in last year. Maybe you might see it otherwise, but again, as a practical matter, you've got a piece of land that has a double zoning, which really makes it very awkward for development. Just things like side yard requirements or coverage requirements, uses. It makes it very, very difficult to use. I think most of you have been sitting here long enough to know that that would be unusual to see a property with a bisected zone, a double zone. It doesn't make sense. So this would clarify and resolve that particular snafu that's been in play for several years. And again, it would be consistent with your plan of conservation and development, be an opportunity to proceed with a DD40 approved use, which is, again, consistent with your plan of conservation and development. And I didn't want to leave you without reaffirming the fact that, we're here only because of an error. And, we all make errors. I have erasers on my pencils for that very reason. However, this is one that's had a devastating effect on the applicant. It really is, I don't know what has changed since March of 2023 that would motivate a different vote. I do know that your Corporation Counsel has given you a memorandum indicating that when you work in your legislative capacity, you can make a decision and ignore what you did a year ago. I do recognize that. But it would be interesting to hear, the basis for an approval or a denial, based upon the fact that there isn't a site plan before you. There is no application before you other than a zone change. And what we're doing is we're trying to take a bifurcated zone file, a property, and make it one zone, consistent with its contiguous parcel. Doesn't seem unusual at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the, first of all, Mr. Piccini, any questions, comments on the application?
No comments.
Okay. Commission members, for the applicant, any questions, comments that you'd like to make before I go out to the public? Mr. Parent.
Just have an observation. Yes, I went back and I looked at the March meeting, and what was significant that there was no public comment. And as we've later turned out, it's just because a lot of the people in the individual lot owners had never received a notice that the zone change is being discussed, so that I can see nobody seemed to be, here was the presentation, nobody seemed to object, therefore commission voted. We then later found out, well, had people been noticed, there would have been opportunity for evidence in opposition. So that to say that, well, what you did a year ago should not, that should kind of be binding on what you want to do tonight or what you should do tonight. And I say, no, because it's two completely different situations. In the first situation, nobody knew. Second situation, a lot of people know. So I think you have to, when you're doing your hearing, you have to be doing the hearing the right way with the proper notices to make sure that everybody gets a chance to be heard. I yield back.
If I can comment, Mr.
Excuse me, if we could just, I know the members of the public, people would like to speak. I know this is also an emotional issue for a lot of people. I fully appreciate that, but if we could just maintain some decorum. And again, when the questions are asked, even if we have members of the public come up and make comments, please refrain from, refrain from clapping. Let's just kind of keep it very on an even keel.
Just by way of response, respectfully, Mr. Attorney Parent, the March 2023 meeting had the proper notices in the newspaper. It had the proper notices to the abutters within 500 feet of the site. It was the failure of the town of Wallingford to file a copy with the town clerk that is the basis for which your corporation counsel determined it to be a void act. Interestingly, again, until current planner Pagini became planner, there was never any filings done. I've got that confirmed by the town clerks, the previous town clerks, that it was never done. So it is not unusual for this town not to comply with its own requirements, but that's a requirement of the town. It's not a requirement of the applicant if you read your regulations, as I'm sure you do. So there was notice to the public. The only notice that wasn't provided was the notice to the town clerk. And again, I can tell you that, the town clerk will confirm that it's a rarity that someone comes in looking for a zone map. They go down and meet usually with the planner. So I think there's plenty of notice at the March 2023 meeting.
Other commission members? That being said, I'll bring it out to the public. Again, this is a public hearing. Members of the public that would like to ask questions, make comments, please come forward with your name and an address. Before this woman speaks, other members of the public, you please raise your hand, those individuals that would like to speak. Okay, what we're going to do is, after this young lady's done, we'll start on the right, move from the front to the back, move over, and keep going. Again, please, your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Petrillo. I live at 164 Mansion Road. Before reading this, I would like to comment that I don't think some of the material that we submitted this past Thursday, you're in receipt of. I did not hear that you had reliable traffic counts, traffic study. You just referenced a few maps. There's a very detailed report that was submitted last week.
Is this what you're referencing?
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah, if this, we have it.
Okay.
That was noted for the record.
Okay. And Judith Williams in February, I don't recall knowing what that is.
Oh, that's a letter that she sent to the commission.
We've been down to the town hall.
Excuse me?
We've been down to the town hall repeatedly asking for any records that have been submitted in between meetings, and I don't recall knowing about that.
I guess Mr. Pagini, was this in the file?
Yeah, it came in the mail, I believe.
Excuse me?
It came in the mail like a couple days after the January meeting.
But it's in the file for
It should
people
have
who
been,
want to
yes.
review it.
Yep.
If you'd like, you can take a look at it and read it if you'd
I'll
like.
get a copy of that. And I also like to comment on the zoning notices. Our understanding is that any taxpayer that gets a tax bill was supposed to receive notice that there was going to be a zone change, and that was not done last March. So I just wanted to clarify that. We have gotten more information to submit to you since the last meeting, and it builds on the facts that we presented at that time. One of the questions raised at the January hearing was how and when did the present two-zone situation at Mansion property come about? Thanks to the excellent records of Planning and Zoning Office, we now have the answer, which is very pertinent to the matter before you. At the special meeting of January 7th, 1986, Commission members discussed the zoning on either side of Mansion and South Turnpike intersection. Town Planner Linda Bush and Planning and Zoning members spoke in favor of changing both to DD40. They agreed that this would fit far better with the residential character of the neighborhood because any DD40 construction would require a substantial landscaped buffer. Linda further said it was simply not good planning to extend the commercial down the road into a heavily residential area. She suggested limiting the depth to no more than 225 feet. The motion was unanimously approved to change the corner land north and south of Mansion to DD40 to a depth of 225 feet. We see from this that the division of 10 Mansion property is the result of much thought of part of the P&Z predecessors. They felt strongly that the depth of the commercial zoning at the South Turnpike intersection should extend only a short distance into the residential neighborhood. They were also mindful of what Janice Small terms the best interest of the entire community. We now turn to expanding on the serious concerns that residents raised at the January hearing about...
Excuse me, ma'am. I
Yes.
don't mean to interrupt you, but the commission has this memo. I assume you're reading this entire memo?
I am.
Yeah. the
I'm doing
commission-
it for the benefit of the group as well.
Well, if you would just please, just summarize it. If you'd like
Okay.
to summarize the memo.
Well, I would like to summarize that in one day, 3,000 cars came up and down Mansion Road. One day. One day.
Okay. Again, please
Which is
just
part of
summarize,
that.
because all the commission members have this. And as far as if other members of the public, wanted this, they could certainly,
Well, I had a feeling you were going to do that.
they have good sense.
That's okay. Also, Planning and Zoning said the traffic is a police matter. We therefore met with the police department for an informal meeting and presented our traffic impact study to them. The police department advised us that the traffic report submitted by Mr. Flamini was absolutely false and that Mansion Road and South Turnpike Road are both heavily traveled roadways. After their informal assessment of the information we presented in our traffic impact study, their comment was that if any commercial client-based business such as this were to be built at 10 Mansion Road, it would present potentially hazardous traffic conditions, and it would be a disaster waiting to happen. And I'd like to comment on 7 Mansion Road, which is across the street, that is, Mr. Senaviva said was commercial. It was grandfathered in as a residential way back when in the 80s when the Rose Bus Company. And it's not a customer-based business, and the zoning of this property is not relevant to this project and has nothing to do with the matter at hand. And I'll just end up with just 2 questions for the committee. Have any of you visited the site?
I can speak for myself. Yes, I suspect most of the commission members have. We normally do.
So you could see for yourselves that concerns we're speaking of, namely the proximity of the restaurant and the impact of the residents whose properties border 10 Mansion Road, as well as the impact of the restaurant, will make on the inland wetlands and waterways and our traffic concerns. Stand at the site and see for yourself the amount of traffic that passes this site, as well as the speed of the vehicles, and remember that over 3,000 vehicles go up and down Mansion Road on just one weekday. How could this commission possibly ignore the voices of nearly 300 tax-paying residents who signed the petition to stop this zone change in favor of one person's application that would destroy our neighborhood?
Thank you. Other members of the public, I believe this woman right up front.
Hi, my name's Darlene Green. I live at 54 Heritage Woods. And I would like to say that we were not notified the first time Planning and Zoning changed it. If you have records showing we were notified, can we see them? Because nobody was notified. The way everybody was notified was when Lost and Found went into the record journal. That's how we found out that it was sold and what was going to happen. You cannot walk down that street without getting rocked over by a car flying by you. With all the cars that he wants to bring in, it should not be done. Many people will be hurt. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, people on the right, yes.
Hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Hi, members of the Planning Committee. My name is Dee Henry. My address is Heritage Woods. I did speak at the January meeting regarding this zone change. My focus...
Excuse me, if you could pull the microphone down
Lower?
just a little bit so they can pick you up.
Can you hear me now? Is that good? Lower?
No, it's great.
I think that's good. Okay.
As long as the buzzer's not ringing, you're good.
Okay. Okay, I did speak at the January meeting regarding this zone change. My focus was on the use of, now I'm going to be a little bit more specific on this area tonight than I was in January. My focus was on the use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, which is SCARS, S-G-A-R-S. This pesticide treatment is used in Connecticut. I am a firm believer, if you are going to speak at a meeting like this one should do their homework. If the vote tonight is in favor of the applicant changing from residential to commercial, it will be a disaster. The plans to put a restaurant, two to three stationary food trucks used as kitchens would be just wrong. Why? Well, number one, it will change the entire aesthetics of our residential neighborhood. Number two, a pesticide treatment would have to be used due to the attraction of food, the smells of food, by mice, rats, and all types of wildlife, which we have in this neighborhood. I have lived here for only 5 years. In this neighborhood, my condo backs woods, okay? So in the back, I have had, in 5 years, 2 bears. One was last Sunday. Bobcats, 6 bobcats in my back. I have had 2 bears, bobcats, deer, woodchucks, hawks, fox, and fisher cats, and all types of birds, owls, hawks, many, okay? The applicant may say, I'm not going to use a bad pesticide. Well, I should say a safe pesticide, okay? But DEP, and EPA, and many lawmakers and the General Assembly's Environment Committee are working on alternate solutions, which is taking time right now. I don't know if I can submit anything to you tonight. Can I?
You can submit whatever you'd like.
Okay. Because I'm going to summarize this, and this is from the General Assembly, okay, which I really kind of focused on. This was in January 25th, 24. The Connecticut lawmakers will consider restricting use of pesticides blamed for killing birds of prey and other wildlife that eat poison, mice, and rats, a leader of the General Assembly's Environment Committee said Tuesday. A model for this study in session that starts in February, a California law that severely curtails use of SCARS, okay? This was Representative Joe Gresco, okay? On the other hand, I'm trying to summarize. I'm not going to read this whole thing because it is lengthy and I want other people to speak. On the other hand, Gresco said he has visited a place called Hope, a raptor rehabilitation center in Killingworth, Connecticut, that treats birds and other wild creatures suffering from dying effects of SCARS. Of 70 dead birds suspected of being poisoned with SCARS, they were sent to laboratories over the past 3 years. 59 treated positive for one or more ingredients. Owls, hawks, and other raptors that eat the toxic rodents drown in their own blood, a horrific death that Cummings said she has seen too often.
And you're summarizing, correct?
Yes, I am. Then, I am. I have it all. February 23rd, 24, on News Channel 8. I don't know I think it was on Channel 3 also. It was reported that 2 monkeys died due to eating a dead mouse. Why? The answer, use of a deadly pesticide. The place was Bearsley Park in Bridgeport. That was in February. In March, a bill before the Connecticut legislature would restrict the use of particularly effective rat and mouse poison that also has caused the agonizing deaths of birds of prey and other wildlife. And I'll summarize again.
She's skipping.
And then there's some comments here by other majority of people in the legislature, okay? Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff of Norwalk told the committee about finding an incapacitated Cooper's hawk in his front yard. Treated at Christine's Critters in Weston. The poisoned bird recovered, but Duff said the incident reinforced his views that the harmful effects of scars far exceed the benefits. He called on the committee to strengthen the bill and ban the use of the pesticides in Connecticut. So this was my focus, gentlemen. It is serious, especially if you're going to put two or three. I'm not sure if it's 2. It's changed so many times. It's 2 food trucks. It's 3 food trucks. I'm not sure what it is. But even with just a restaurant, you are going to have a problem there. We have such wildlife in that area, and it has to be considered, and I'm glad that this assembly, the committees are working on these pesticides. Right now, there is no pesticide that is safe in Connecticut. So if you would take this.
Oh, yeah, sure. If you would give it to Mr. Pagini, please. And again, the next individual would like to speak on the right side. Anyone there? Yes, the gentleman in the back. Anyone else on the right side that would like to speak? Lady in the back.
Hi, my name is Jay Souza. I live at 26 Mansion Road.
Feel free to raise that up.
And
There you go.
there is a lot of wildlife. I've got a big pond in the back. I get blue herring. I get fisher cats. I get kingfishers in my pond, taking my fish every day. Ospreys come in. They've taken a lot of fish. Red hawks are all over the place. My wife feeds the birds a lot. We had to stop feeding them because the rats came in from the river. There is a lot of rats, and if there's food there, they will thrive. I just want to let you know there will be a problem.
Good enough. Thank you. And the lady in the back. And is she the last individual on the right side that would like to comment?
Hi, I'm Mary Semino. I live at 145 Brentwood Drive. When the attorney talks about
Again,
people,
could you please come just a little bit closer to the microphone?
when the attorney talks about people not being notified, I can attest that this town has done a great job in things in the past, such as Oakdale Theater. Every single one of us, even more than 500 feet from the venue, were given notice when Oakdale expanded and went indoors. I also knew the owner at the time, Ben Siegel, very well. Took care of his wife during her passing. We weren't notified about anything. And like Darlene said, if it wasn't in the paper, we would have never found out. When you talk about the zoning and going to his property, next time come to my backyard. Come stand there and think about what you will hear at night. No sound barrier. He wants to be open at night. He wants outdoor entertainment, music. Talked about a theater, meaning movies. I hear barn owls. I have rabbits. Every animal that they talked about goes through my yard too. But with this, 35 years plus living there, won't happen. I bought it because it's residential, not a restaurant. Put in a 2-family house, 2 mini houses. Put in a doctor's or a lawyer's office. things that aren't open at night, things that are open Monday through Friday, like everything else on that road. One restaurant on that road closes by 9:30 every night. Oakdale Theater is generally done by 10:30 every night. We don't hear all that, though. It's down the road, away from us, away from residents, or anybody who did buy the condos that are next to Oakdale Theater, bought them fully knowing that Oakdale was in their backyard. I never had a problem even when Oakdale was in the open. That's how long I've been there. This is going to create a nuisance. This is going to draw animals that we don't want, that are going to bring germs. It's going to take away our bear. Literally, he may come and eat that stuff and be sick. Quality of life will change. Home values will change. We've all worked
Would you like
too
to get
hard.
that?
We've all worked too hard for what we have in the condos. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I get to the next speaker, I just remind everybody, please turn your phones off. And now we'll go to the center. Individuals in the center, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Yes, this gentleman here. Any other members in the center who'd like to speak on the application?
Robert O'Connor, 53 Brentwood Drive. I was listening to the applicant's summation earlier in the night, and I have to say that, sure, there was mistakes made. I do not know if when this zone change was done, if they had in mind what was actually going to happen with that property. I believe wholeheartedly that it was meant to keep that zone near Turnpike Road. It could be commercial, but inland, 200 feet, no. I don't know. It might have been, but here it is. There was mistakes made when this was done, and everybody's going to, talk about the mistakes that were made when the application was done and it had to be rescinded. Thank God it was. Thank God that we had time to circle the wagons and tell you that there's people that own houses that spent their whole life savings, less than 50 feet from where this building is going to go up, that are going to have their lives turned upside down. I'm not against live music outside. I'm not against the restaurant. I'm not against the food trucks. I'm not against the light, the smell, the garbage. I'm not against any of that. Where it is, I have a problem with. You have to understand that would ruin the quality of life for the people that spent their whole life savings on apartments and a house. My friend's house is right next door. I couldn't imagine putting a restaurant that close to a house. I don't think that it was thought of right. I'm sure that the applicant had good ideas about the property and how he could, but you know what? Looking at it, and I've been there, and you've all been there, you said you were there, look at the problem. There's not enough room to do what the applicant wants to do. It should be not zoned for a commercial. That is not the area that should be zoned. First of all, I thank Karen for her job doing the traffic study. I went out and rented a speed gun. I had my friend write down the cars. We did 100 cars. Out of 100 cars that came by, in less than an hour and a half, 100 cars came by. More than half were going over 40 miles an hour. Let that happen when there's a truck pulling out of there. Let a kid on a bike be coming by. This is a disaster. Looking for a place to happen. It's not been thought out. It's great. It's an area. Put a duplex of houses there or something. If you put a restaurant, all you're going to do is create a big snarl there. There's a million other reasons. I can't believe that anybody would want to put a restaurant there, let alone put one that involves the live music and all the things at night and having to fill in and cut down a mountain and do. I don't mind that, just not there. These people that live in Lower Brentwood, on Mansion Road, on Heritage Woods, they don't want it. It's going to ruin our quality of life. I don't want to sit on my back porch at night in the nice quiet neighborhood that we have now and smell food cooking, unless it's from somebody's grill somewhere in our neighborhood, but not every night until 10 o'clock, live music. It's not right. It wasn't, I'm sure, if you wanted it commercial, that's fine, but they weren't thinking this kind of commercial. They were not thinking of this kind of commercial business. And I'm against it. I know there's a lot of other people against it. Sure, I would love to see a beautiful duplex house be put up there that could generate money for the applicant. But to put this restaurant there, not only will it fail because of the parking and because of the traffic, it will fail because no one will want to go there. If you come from the Oakdale and you get stuck in traffic for a half hour, are you going to want to go right to another place and get stuck in traffic? I don't think so. It's just not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public that would like to comment on the application? Okay, I don't see any other members of the public that would like to comment. That being the case, I'd bring it back to the applicant. If the applicant would like to make any additional comments.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, again, the speakers tonight spoke to a specific use that is not before this commission. So whether there's traffic reports, whether there's comments, hearsay comments from a previous planner from a couple of decades ago, they're really irrelevant to the task at hand for you. You have a very specific application before you. It's a request for a zone change. It's not for any particular use. You probably know far better than I do what the DD District 40 District allows as permitted, as special permitted rights or uses. I mean, I can read them to you. I mean, my client could build a funeral home there on the front piece. It's already permitted under the DD District. You know, I mean, there is no doubt about what he's interested in doing, but that is premature. To raise those issues, traffic is not a concern of yours, not by statute. Noise, pesticides, please. I mean, there's no plan before you. All those things might be irrelevant at the next step when Mr. Fellini and his company bring an application before you of a land use nature. And again, I just, by way of confirmation, you can ask your planner, before any zone change applications presented to you, the applicant has to provide, this is what the applicant has to do. The applicant has to provide a list of abutters and has to provide certificates of mailing to those abutters. Those are provided to the planning department before we come before you. It's the town's obligation to make sure the notice goes in the newspaper, which it did, and that one copy of the 16 we submit, one copy gets filed with the town clerk. That did not occur. But that's the nature of the notice. So the notice was significant back in March of 2023. The notice is similar here for you tonight. Again, your charge, again, as you know better than I do, I'm not trying to provide you with some information.
Excuse me, we've had the public comment.
But, the petition before you is a zone change to take a piece of land that has two zones. I mean, that would be odd for me. I suspect it's fairly odd for you to hear that. And so this is an opportunity to resolve and remedy that particular zoning issue. The applicant then would have a right, even at any point, to come in with whatever permitted use is allowed under the DD 40 zone. You can well imagine that he will. And at that time, any legitimate concerns about noise, traffic, drainage, aesthetics, they're all before you, but not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, commission members, any comments on the application? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been at this application for quite a while, and there's a lot been said. I will take issue with something Mr. Attorney Senaviva has said, that part of the problem here was in the notification of the residents. Now, I believe that the way people were notified was not, there's a couple condo associations there, and I guess the notifications went to the owner of the condo association. They did not get to the specific condo owners. Now, that issue was not the reason that this application initially was invalidated. It was the zone map, which was not sent out. However, that lack of notification, I think, does, warrant consideration as far as, a lot of the comments that have been said. So I do take a little bit of exception on that. And I think that was your responsibility to notify the occupants of, the condo associations, not just the owner or the, head of the condo association. So I do take exception to that. So also, we've gained a lot of information that apparently we can't take into consideration tonight, such as the specifics as to, a restaurant with food trucks. Now, that info is out there, and it kind of puts a question mark in my mind whether or not we can actually consider that. The request, as you say, is for a zone change from R18 to DD 40, Design Development 40. And as you state, and I'm reading from the manual, it's to allow for a variety of commercial uses. And then you go on to reference restaurants, cafes, taverns, and, I think funeral home is mentioned in there. It also says that, and this is where I run into a little bit of a problem, where what is not allowed is a drive-in restaurant. And according to, info that's come out in this entire, several months, it sounds like, there is potential for a drive-in restaurant. So even though I can't consider that, I'm stating it because I want the applicant to understand that if he does come back with what he has proposed, it's not allowed. And, I won't vote for it, with the food trucks and, things like that. Somebody asked if we visited the site, and I did. I went to the inland wetlands walkthrough, and that really opened my eyes as to how this parcel is situated. The pictures, the aerial maps, the maps we've seen don't really do justice as far as how close, the residents, individual home, the condos behind. It really doesn't do justice until you actually see it. So to make a commercial project right there is difficult for me to see after seeing that site. And again, we're in a legislative kind of decision. After seeing the site, the geology there, the ravine that would have to be manipulated to, merge the two, is something that, I have a hard time, approving that. Apparently, we can't take traffic into concern with the zone change either. And there's a lot of traffic studies here that indicate the number of cars coming down Mansion Road and South Turnpike. However, again, I'm going to go back to, the potential commercial use. Whatever it is, it's not going to be a residential. There's going to be traffic generated, whatever the commercial use is. And one of the big things that really struck me was our last meeting, I believe, where the state and our state representative spoke. And the state has looked at Turnpike Road and said that the sightlines on Turnpike Road are just not great. So with any type of commercial development here, there's going to be issues. There is bedrock that, the state is unable or unwilling to deal with to improve the sightlines for, South Turnpike. So again, with any type of commercial use, I think that does have to be considered. Not the amount of traffic, but just, the existing sightlines. There are a couple of other commercial uses, across the street on Mansion Road, and there's one across the street on South Turnpike. And those, and I think some of the residents touched on it, operate within the hours of, normal business, 9 to 5, and, they may or not be open on Saturday or Sundays. So, those would be the type of, commercial uses that, would be, I don't want to say appropriate, but something that, may be considered as, acceptable. So, I at this point again, based on, visiting the site, the potential commercial development based on how close this is to the, existing residents, and I think the prior discussion from, our planning office going back years ago, I think, they had the right insight to this. So right now I'm having trouble supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commission members? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will be brief.
Sorry.
A couple things, and I've got lots of papers in front of me. We're talking about less than an acre of land. And I've said it, and I've said it before. I grew up on the west side. I worked at the Oakdale for 4 years, and I was in Oakdale traffic as recently as Friday night, so I'm very familiar with the residents. My comments would be, I do believe there's been change since I sat up here in March of '23 and was in favor of this application. I think additional information, the totality of the evidence, and as the Mr. Saviva, who I have enormous respect for, indicated, the list of availability of what can happen in a DD40, I believe the present zone of R18 is appropriate for this site. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Other commission members would like to comment. Mr. Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where I can make I think I can make my point without even have to talk about use. If the land had been purchased and donated to the land trust, there's still some very severe concerns, and that is the traffic. And so what I did is I went over with my van and I said, well, what's it like coming down Mansion Road, which angles into South Turnpike, and just taking a left and going north, right? Simple. People do it all day long. So I went up the road, turned around and came back. And when you get to the end of Mansion Road, heading the intersect, there's a stop bar. That's where you're supposed to stop and put your car. Perfect. So I did that. But the only problem, because of the angle of the road, I really couldn't see what was coming down South Turnpike Road. And so I kind of, let the brake out. Didn't realize I'd edged out about a foot, and just as I was about to edge out some more, a car coming up South Turnpike Road took a left into Mansion Road. Now, am I a good driver? I don't know. I would say I should have been going back and forth like this. But I'm saying you have one person just trying to do it, and there was no traffic. This is not like I'm fighting traffic or anything like that. This is kind of in the middle afternoon. I said, no, you can't do this. You can't have any activity where that intersection is. I mean, we're lucky there's a big building there that nobody seems to be at during the time, but on that issue alone, I don't see how I could support the zone change. And then, as a side comment, we planning and zoning commissions are supposed to get training, and we dutifully went our training. And we got to the one section about land forms and things like that. And the instructor said, if you see anything where you have to correct the land forms, you better be sure that that plan covers everything. There's not going to be any erosion. There's not going to be anything. And I don't think that's been done yet. And if that's the spot, whether the person wants to put the house up, put another house down there or what, I think you got a real problem with that site. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Parent. Other commission members would like to comment. Mr. Allenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will also be brief.
Thank you.
So the DD40 has a lot of different uses that are there. I'm very familiar with the area. I've been by there. I used to live at Heritage Woods years ago. Very familiar with the traffic and everything else. The application that's before us tonight versus the application that was in the newspaper that everybody's concerned about are two different things. And as far as a zone change of the property, I don't see an issue with that. As far as an application going forward, I'm concerned about the pesticide. I'm concerned about the traffic. I'm concerned about the sightlines. I'm concerned about everything that the public has raised tonight. But that's not what's before us tonight. Tonight, it's a zone change, and I can see certain businesses, commercial businesses, being built on that parcel that will fit our plan of conservation and development, that will fit our zoning and will be appropriate uses, appropriate commercial uses of that property. And that being said, I don't think we can pick and choose because we've seen or heard conjecture about what might come before us to rule upon a rule change. And I know that may not be popular with the public tonight, and I apologize, but that's not what's before us tonight. It's strictly a zone change. And if I can think of at least one good commercial use that would fit there, I don't see how I can deny this application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. Other commission members? Seeing none, I'll just make some general comments. Just to comment on the initial comment you made as far as the Attorney Senaviva, as far as the notification and all of that. My recollection, I think, at least in my mind, I think Mr. Cohan pretty much summarized how I understood, how it may be incorrect, but how he explained the notification and what happened, what did not happen, as far as notifying all of the residents rather than just the property manager for the condo association. I mean, that's unfortunate that it happened, but it happened. And at the meeting in March when we had it, there was, as I recall, there was no member of the public there, and quite frankly, it was a very brief meeting, or a very brief presentation. I don't believe you were there. I don't believe the applicant was there. I could be wrong, but that's really irrelevant. What's changed, and you ask what's changed, and I think other commission members have pointed out what's changed. The fact is that, we now have the public here who have voiced their comments, their concerns, just their observations, which I think some of them certainly resonate with members of the commission. I think, though Mr. Allison pointed out that, the application that's before us is, it's not for a specific use, it's for a zone change. And that's what's before us, is simply a zone change. Certainly the applicant had made representations what he would like to do with the property if the zone change was put in place. If the zone change was approved or is approved tonight, it's possible he could do that. It's also possible he could sell the property to somebody else to do something else with it. So it's not, it's not a given that there'd be a restaurant or there'd be, quasi food trucks there. I think what we need to look at is what's the most appropriate use for this property. Is it to keep it as a residential or to look to change the zone? I mean, this property right now, and again, we're just talking about one specific piece of property. We're not talking about the adjacent lot and merging that lot, because your application is simply for changing the zone. I'm looking at the property and saying, it's a mixed zone, as you pointed out. Again, would people please turn the phones off? It's a mixed zone. Although the overwhelming majority of the property is about 83% of the property is zoned residential. You had mentioned as far as this complies or how it works into our plan of conservation and development. I can see your point on that, but I also look and say, but our plan of conservation and development is also, we want to, encourage residential. And I'm looking at it, is it the best use to take a property? I understand right now there's just one residence on there, but if we're trying to encourage residential, and we've talked about residential and trying to build on residential to have more of that in town, does it make sense to take a property? Again, I understand it's only one lot, to eliminate a residential property, or is it more appropriate to keep it as it is? I'm also looking at as all the commission members have, we've gone out, we've taken a look at the property, seen where it's situated. Yeah, across the street there's the credit union, but as you go up Mansion Road, it's all residential. Behind the property, it's residential. In my mind, I think that the residential use for this property which is the current use, remains the most appropriate use. I understand your comments that it creates a problem for the applicant because it's a mixed zone. A portion of it's residential, a portion of it's DD40. Perhaps the appropriate approach would be is to ask for a zone change and have the DD40 become the R18 rather than flipping it over the other way. So I mean, those are my comments, and as far as being able to support the application, again, I approved it or voted to approve it, I guess it's probably about a year ago. But in my mind, that there has, as other commission members have stated, there has been additional information that's been presented, and I think, quite frankly, I think we've taken a much deeper dive into this and had a much more beneficial discussion about the zone change. I think it's unfortunate that there was, an issue with the notification, but again, that's something at this point in time that that we can't correct. So, with that, and I apologize for not being brief. With that, I guess if there's no more comments from commission members, and if Mr. Pagini, you don't have anything, or if the applicant would like to make any further comments, I'm going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, is the fact that your record is replete with information and reports. None of it relates to the zone change itself, in my opinion, and that's for this commission to determine when you act in your capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, at this point in time, if there's no further comments from commission members, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close public hearing for application 503-23, zone change R18 to DD40, Lost and Found Ventures, LLC, 10 Mansion Road.
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Somebody raised his hand back there. They wanted one more opportunity.
Well, we've closed the public hearing, Mr. Parent. Thank you. So at this point in time, we have a motion to close the public hearing, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes, at this time, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we deny application 503-23, zoning map amendment 10 Mansion Road, zoning map amendment for Lost and Found Ventures LLC to change a portion of 10 Mansion Road as defined on map entitled Zone Change Location Map, land of Lost and Found Ventures LLC dated January 31st, 2023 from R18 to DD40 because based on the totality of the information before us, it does not fit within the residential community setting.
Do we have a motion, any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Parent, you're not voting on the
I am.
applicant.
Okay.
You did what?
No, I just had a comment.
With that, we have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes to deny.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
And yes, your application's been denied, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on, our next item on our agenda is continuation of a special permit waste reduction facility, Busillo's 507 Main Street, Yalesville. If the application would please come forward to begin the presentation. And if you could just wait a moment or two as give public a chance to clear out.
Just in case.
And while we're waiting, Mr. Allison, would you just please note all correspondence for the record?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department. Inspection date March 11th, 2024. We have a memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the Department of Engineering dated April 5th, 2024. Correspondence from Giuliano Associates to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated March 27th, 2024. Correspondence from Giuliano Associates to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated April 2nd, 2024. Proposed building layout plan, proposed waste reduction facility, map dated March 28th, 2024. correspondence from Giuliano Associates to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated April 2nd, 2024. And limited property boundary survey dated December 20th, 2023. I believe that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. If the applicant and its representative please introduce themselves and continue with your presentation from last month.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Christopher Giuliano, licensed land surveyor and professional engineer with the firm of Giuliano Associates. I maintain an office at 405 Main Street in the Yalesville section of town. To my right, your left, is Mr. Dennis Busillo, the applicant. I'm going to go up to the board. I'll just explain to the commission what's changed since last month, and then I'll answer any questions. And as I noted, I do have the applicant here, so if there are any questions that I cannot answer, he'll be able to answer them for me. All right?
Thank you.
Okay. At last month's meeting, I went over the site plan. There were a number of questions from the commission members with respect to the operations, and I will get into that in just a moment. The one main question, it came from Commissioner Cohan. It was more of a request of whether I could raise the building up to get some additional height above the floodplain. And we did take the time in between, and we were able to raise that building another half a foot out of the floodplain. We did look to go a whole nother foot, but unfortunately, due to the distance between the existing building here and the proposed building and the grading, we felt that the driveway slope up to the new building would have been just a slightly too steep for garbage trucks. So therefore, we backed it down just to give you another half a foot. So we're 1.5 feet above the floodplain. That doesn't change our compensatory storage around the site at all. All that grading stayed the same. So we have more compensatory storage than is necessary. We also took a little bit of extra time. We spoke with the building designer because there was a question from the town engineer regarding our desire to use underneath the building for the compensatory storage, basically using gravel. Ms. Caneschi had a question of whether or not that gravel could let the water in quick enough when flood waters come in, and then obviously let the waters get out quick enough. So we did find out that we have actually 3 different solutions for how to handle the water underneath the building for compensatory storage. The first is the stone, which is the primary method because it would be one of the least expensive methods. Next, we could put a pipe network underneath the building slab. It would also have stone, but the pipe having the voids would allow water to come in quicker. And then we can actually do a structural slab, helical piles, and actually create a large void area underneath that slab. So basically, almost having the building slab up on piers with a foundation wall around it. So it would basically be open, water could come in and leave. We'll actually get to what that solution is going to be if this commission approves it. If we get our DEP approval, we'll come back to the town engineer with the actual building slab design, and that'll go through your building department as well. But I wanted to bring that up to you, just so you knew where all that stood. With respect to the other questions the commissioners had, there was a question about smell and odor last month. I misspoke in front of this commission talking about misting to keep that odor down. That was my mistake. I did go back and talk with the applicant, and we provided you written response as to how any odors would be dealt with. They're not anticipated to have overwhelming amount of odor, but if they do, it would be handled with lime, which would be hand spread. And as further explanation in the document you will receive, all of the garbage is going to come into the facility and leave the facility almost on a daily basis, so things will not be sitting long-term as far as the municipal solid waste or the construction debris. What probably will stay a little bit longer, depending upon the trucking aspect of it, would be the materials in the sorting bins, such as the recyclables and stuff like that. Just to reiterate, there was a question about the water and sewer, comment about floor drains. There are no floor drains in the building. That's been confirmed. So there should be no issue with respect to any kind of water inside the building as well. We did provide you a link to a little video that was prepared, not for this facility, but a similar, larger facility on how the garbage is brought in, how it's dumped, how it's moved. And what I did is I asked the applicant to provide a floor layout, which we spruced up and gave you a plan so you can see where the sorting bins are. You can see where the various materials will be stored within the building. And then lastly, Commissioner Fitzsimmons asked about the number of vehicle trips. And we broke that down with a little bit more information, and I hope that addressed your question with respect to exactly how many more vehicles will be entering this site daily and even by hour. So we provided all that information in our memo from April 2nd. Engineering comments and planner comments were previously addressed earlier in March. So unless there's anything specific, not a lot has changed with the site plan other than raising it up. We answered your questions. And if there are any other additional questions, I will try to answer them at this time.
Thank you, sir. Commission members with any questions for the applicant? Other commission members? Good. If you would, I guess the applicant, I know you gave us a link to go onto YouTube, and quite frankly, the link was so long I got tired typing it. So if you could please just give us just a brief description of just how everything's handled.
Okay.
Once from the time the trucks come in to everything to the day's done.
So the dump in the center, depending if it's construction, demolition debris, will go push to one side. The MSW will be to the other side. And then we'll just separate from there and then pile and load as trailers come in. We're going to load by trailer. So the truck will back in, dump on the floor, depending on what material it is, separate what we can, stockpile it, and then on the other hand, keep shipping it as we go.
So it's all just hand separated?
I'm sorry?
How's the separation done? Is it all?
A little bit of hand and then excavator. Loader and excavator. Loader to push it up, a mini excavator in the middle, separating, some hand, and then a larger excavator loaded.
Okay. And then as far as, I know you mentioned, as far as all the, it was mentioned that at the end of the day, the floor's cleaned.
I plan on
everything's-
having 100%, yes.
How's that done?
Forms,
Again,
this and that
because
do happen.
there's no water in the facility, so how's the cleaning done?
Okay.
There's no drains, there's no water.
Yeah, I was going to use green waste wood chip because I'll be bringing in clean wood, clean the floor that way, and then just load that remainder that's contaminated or dirty right into the MSW side and get it out of there.
So then it really, at the end of the day, what you've indicated is there's going to be very little as far as refuge, trash, whatever we
Yeah.
call it. What's the technical term?
Yeah, the residue.
I'm playing with you.
All right.
No, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Mr. Pagini, any comments, additional comments on the application?
Just that the town engineer has stated that either option 2 that you had mentioned or option 3 would be acceptable, just
Okay.
not option 1.
That's fine.
All right, at this point in time, this is a public hearing. Any members of the public would like to comment on the application, please come forward and name and address. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to commission. Any final comments from commission members? Any final comments from the applicant? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, just really quick for the town planner. Option 2 or option 3, is that based on the comments from the town engineer dated February 28th?
No, it's
2004?
under newer memo that's dated 4/5, so if you just want to add that onto the condition. It came in after the packets went out.
4 or 5?
Yes.
And that's saying option 2 and 3?
Correct, yep.
That's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for application 402-24, special permit waste reduction facility, Busillo, 507 Main Street, Yalesville.
We have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, at this point in time, I entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 402-24, special permit and floodplain development permit, Busillo, special permit, site plan approval, and floodplain development permit request to construct a waste reduction facility at an existing trucking operation on plans entitled 507 Main Street, dated 2024 and revised to, when is the revision date? Sorry.
3/6, I believe.
3/6/2024. Subject to the following conditions. 1, comments from the town planner dated 1/22/2023 and 2/1/2023. Should those be 2024?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right. 2024. Correction to that. Comments from the town planner dated January 2022, 2024, and February 1st, 2024. 2, comments from the engineer, senior engineer Scott Shipman, Water and Sewer Division, dated 1/31/2024. 3, comments from the town engineer Allison Kapuscinski, dated February 28th, 2024, and April 5th, 2024. 4, comments from the fire marshal, dated 2/9/2024. 5, erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $10,500. And 6 copies of final plan forward to Planning and Zoning Office.
We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I wondered if the vice chair would accept a correction. The revision on the plan is 3/28/24.
Stand corrected, 3/28/24.
And with that, I'd be happy to second.
I have a second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting on the vote beginning on the application by Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, application's been approved. Have a good evening, and moving on, brings us to our next order of business, which is a special permit for a drive-through retail restaurant for Kapoor at 905 North Colony Road. Mr. Allison, if you would please read the legal notice and then begin to note all correspondence for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Correspondence from H&H to Mr. Manraj Parmar, dated March 13th, 2024, with attachments and data. Correspondence from State of Connecticut Department of Transportation to Mr. Marcus Potok, dated March 27th, 2024. A proposed building plan and survey dated, sorry, I gotta squint, January 5th, 2024, prepared by Godfrey Hoffman and Hodge. Interdepartmental comments from Inland and Wetlands Department, dated January 25th, 2024. Correspondence to Rohan Kapoor from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated January 26th, 2024. Memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the Department of Engineering dated January 31st, 2024. An interoffice memorandum from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated January 31st, 2024. An inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department dated January 31st, 2024. An inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department dated February 9th, 2024. Memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the Department of Engineering dated February 14th, 2024. Email correspondence from signed Amanda DeLuca. However, in the address bar, it says Amanda Gagliatino, dated February 14th, 2024. Correspondence to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, from Marcus Puddock. Godfrey Hoffman Hodge, dated February 7th, 2024. Correspondence from Marcus Puddock to Allison Kapuscinski. Godfrey Hoffman Hodge, February 7th, 2024. Certification of mailing. With multiple recipients that I don't believe is necessary to go through. And that is all.
I think you're correct on that. Thank you, Mr. Allison. At this point in time, for the applicant, Dan, or its representative, please introduce themselves and begin their presentation.
Thank you, Chair, Commission, and staff. I want to state that we appreciate staff's assistance through this process. Wade Harden with Corporate 7 Brew, 313 North Ralston Avenue, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'd also like to introduce our local franchisees that are here behind me, Rohan Kapoor, Manraj Parmar. Also to my left is Marcus Puddock, our civil engineer, as well as Steve Cipolla, our traffic engineer. So for those of you that are not familiar with the concept, 7 Brew is a coffee brand focused on providing our customers handcrafted drinks in a fast and friendly manner, cultivating kindness, joy with every drink. The brand's first store is in Rogers, Arkansas, developed in 2017. Since then, we've developed 200 stores across the country and are currently expanding. The format is a double drive-through, with orders being input by runners, and then the drinks being hand-delivered to the customer in their car. This site is very similar to other 7 Brew formats, a double drive-through, 3/4 of an acre. The metrics are very similar. I won't get too far into the site plan. I'll turn it over to Marcus to run through the site plan.
Good evening, Marcus Puddock for the record. I have an office at 26 Broadway in North Haven. I'm a licensed land surveyor and a civil engineer. Good evening. The site is at 905 North Colony Road. It's an existing Captain of the Sea, I believe it's called, restaurant. The existing site will be almost entirely demolished. The building, as well as most of the pavement, or all of the pavement, will be removed. I believe the only thing we propose to maintain is subsurface. Many of the subsurface utilities will remain. The existing site has 2 driveways. The inbound site, which is the inbound lane, which is the northerly driveway, has been narrowed from its existing configuration per DOT's request. We do have the north side of the site, an inbound only. It will split into 2 waiting lanes or drive-through lanes, and then a pass-through for customers or that change their mind. Hopefully they don't, or the employees to get around cars that are waiting and get to the parking. There are 13 parking spaces along the south side. These are for employees only. There is no interior space within this building for customers. This is a drive up, to get your drink, go. There is no food. This will be a Class 1 restaurant, so it has no cooking, no preparing of foodstuffs that require any kind of extra sanitary sewer treatment. So upon exit, there is a double lane, one for each direction, heading north or southbound onto North Colony Road. Both driveways have been thoroughly vetted by DOT and approved. So we've been through we've been through all of the town departments and all of their comments, provided all of the answers that they had requested, and those are in your packets. I noted that you noted all of my correspondence with the town. That's the bulk of what I would like to say about it. I would entertain questions on the site plan itself. Our traffic engineer is here also to, if you have any specific questions about traffic and how that might function, or whether it's going up or down, or we would certainly entertain those. That's what I have to say.
Again, if you could give just a little bit better description of just how it operates, where someone is going to order, where they place the order, and then where they pick it up. And then I also noticed that there's two buildings. Am I correct?
There are. One is the building which houses.
One,
so the main building, the smaller building.
I see the main building, but I see the other building.
This is basically just a refrigeration unit.
Okay. Because that's what, 20, maybe 275 square feet, something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, because when I was looking at that, I didn't see that building. Am I missing it?
Yes, it's not depicted in this particular setup.
So what's that building going to look like?
It will have a very similar appearance.
That's correct.
Yes, it has a similar appearance. It's just setting off to the side.
And what's the reason for that? Why couldn't that be kind of incorporated into the main building? There seems to be room in the in the
yeah.
back.
So just
again, just your name, please. Again.
Sure. Wade Harden, corporate secretary.
Thank you.
So the walk-in cooler is actually on the side that tucks in under the canopy here, and is accessed from under the canopy, and that's typically set on the side of the building and accessed through from beneath the canopy.
Again, what would be the reason for having two separate buildings rather than having that small building?
It's the format that we've chosen. I mean, it's the reasoning behind that. It's from an operations perspective.
All right. We're seeing from an aesthetic standpoint, it would be better not to
So,
have it.
and to be clear, the building is built off-site and brought to the site, and so they need them to be smaller. And then,
Excuse me?
So they are smaller buildings that are brought
under-
to the site, built off-site, and then brought here.
Sure.
So that's a part of the reason why they're not the same.
Yeah, no, I understand, but there's such a thing as modular. But again, that's your design, that's your model. So it's not me. It's not up to me to redesign it. It's just up to me to make a comment or two.
Okay,
and that would be
that's
it.
fair. So, and then to comment on, or to your comment about ordering, so anywhere they stop along their route, and generally would be closer to the canopy itself, on the southbound side, they can order. So the runner will come to the car, take their order. So it could happen, depending on how many cars are sitting here, it could happen anywhere along this side, and then another runner would bring their drink to them as they move forward, and then once they've got their drink, they can certainly leave.
Okay. Commission members with any questions for the applicant on this part of their presentation? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have quite a few questions. I'm sorry. I'll try and be brief. So, these runners, what's the average length of time that these cars come in, the order's taken, and they get out of here? You've got quite a few cars queued up here, which is great. If somebody orders something exotic, you could cause a queuing delay. So what's the average amount of time you get through, say this last car over here, over on the far right-hand side, he comes in, how long is it going to take him to get to, his order?
Sure.
And, when I hear runners running in between these cars, which, I envision they're going to be doing, how many have been hit by a car? And am I envisioning that correctly?
So let me answer the first question in regards to, obviously, this is a depiction of how many cars we could stack in queue.
Yeah.
These sites are designed to where we can encompass all of, the peak, our peak demand hours, which is typically in the mornings between 7 and 8. So during that time, and Steve, I'll let you comment a little bit in more detail on it from a traffic and a queuing study perspective. But we have order takers or runners, if you want to call them such, that are typically in this area here. They have tablets. They'll actually take that order, which is then processed into the what I'm going to call the kitchen, where the drinks are made. And so this model is extremely efficient. So within a few minutes of somebody coming onto the site, they'll have their drinks and be leaving the site. And so again, they're taking orders in this area, passed to the kitchen. The internal operators in here are delivering the drinks, and then the customers moving on in their way.
So where is that second runner positioned? I mean, because you get the two lines of traffic.
Correct. So we have, during our peak hours, we have this run here as well as this area striped here. We have an order table placed here under, there's a canopy. So here's there are two hop-out doors. One of the runners is here manning this station as well as this door here. So then those drinks are delivered to those customers.
So that striped area, is there any barrier protection? Is it?
No, this is just a striped area.
Okay, so how long does it take? You said a couple minutes, but that last car, how long on average does it take for him to get his order?
So again, it's 3 minutes in the queue, but this is not probably an accurate reflection of a typical operation. Obviously, all the cars in queue will move that through the process. They'll move faster through the process. And Steve, I'll let you comment as far as on the queuing times, and if you want to run through the traffic side of things.
We as part of our
Excuse me, sir, your name and address, please. Thank you.
Sorry. Steve Cipolla, Senior Traffic Engineer with Hardesty in Hanover, 20 Main Street in Norwalk. We, as part of our traffic evaluation and comments from town engineering, we looked at data from an existing similar site in Vesterol, New York. It was a similar site. It had two drive-through lanes. Based on, we collected data on 3 typical midweekdays, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we also collected data for 2 Saturdays. So then we could get an average typical weekday, average typical Saturday. I believe the peak that we saw, we summarized it in 15-minute intervals. I think the peak 15-minute interval, I believe, was 17 cars during one of the weekday periods. So that's about how many cars that can make it through the drive-through in a 15-minute period that we saw at their similar site.
And that's with both lanes?
That's with both lanes operating, correct, yes.
That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Other commission members? Mr. Allenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick questions. Emergency vehicles coming in, coming out, obviously with it queued up the way it's depicted in that drawing, it'd be a little bit difficult. How would that work if they needed to come in, if there was a fire in the building or something else?
Well, certainly there is the pass-through lane. Certainly, obviously, if there were this many people parked all the way out queued, they would have a little bit of trouble. But I mean, some of those cars would just have to move. There's a fire and a fire truck trying to get in. We would have to rely on the public to be sensible enough to just pull forward enough to let them get in.
And there's enough room for that to occur.
There is enough room for them to get through the pass-through if they need it.
Okay. And on the side, you said there's 13 spaces for employees?
Yes.
Do you anticipate them all being filled?
Not at any one time. There are 13. This is the number of spaces they believe they need, so that like during shift changes and things like that, they're not one person waiting for a parking space. But they're not intended for the general public to park there and stay there. They're really just intended for employees.
On average, how many would you anticipate being vacant?
Typically, in a typical shift, a little over half of those would probably be filled.
Okay. Thank you. And then just the last question, when somebody's picking up their drinks, are they picking up their drinks at the end of the queue, or would they get a drink partially in queue?
At the end.
Okay, that's the only place where they would pick them up.
So yeah, the runners are here trying to deliver drinks as the cars pull up to the very end.
Okay. And I guess that leaves me with one other follow-up question. Obviously, if somebody is in queue and they're tired of being there, they're going to pull out of queue and come around. Is there a place where they're in queue where they're stuck by a barrier to have to finish the queue, or can they leave the line at any time?
They could leave the line at any time. There are no barriers. This is a painted stripe, so we would hope that people wouldn't, run someone over to try and get out of line or anything, but there is no physical barrier for them leaving if they choose to not get a drink.
An angry, caffeine-deprived individual does weird things. So, thank you.
We can't control that.
Are you talking from experience?
No comment.
Other commission members? Yes, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So wanted to follow up a bit on some observations and questions from Commissioner Cohen. It sounds like peak capacity, if I understood, based on other similar facilities, is about 17 cars in 15 minutes?
That's not peak capacity. That was the peak demand that we found.
Would you say that was maybe perhaps on the high end of average then?
I think that's a reasonable assumption.
All right, so based on that, I was looking at the site plan has the distance from the stop line to the exit. And based on average vehicle length, how many vehicles do you expect that have fulfilled their order and are trying to leave the site in case of traffic backup, especially turning left? How many vehicles do you what's the average length of time that you expect to be able to evacuate vehicles under some of the peak traffic conditions? So I'm concerned about a traffic bottleneck, especially people wanting to turn left. It looks like my guess is you can probably get 2 vehicles between the stop line and the roadway. That's it.
Yes. Again, Steve Cipolla, Hardesty, Hanover. The driveway is designed to have both a separate left, separate right to separate the vehicles' turning directions, as well as the main road provides a 2-way left turn lane, which assists drivers who want to make a left out of the driveway to be able to make the left into the 2-way left turn lane. So it's kind of a 2-staged. They can, as long as no one's coming southbound, they can make the left into the 2-way, and then they merge into the flow of northbound traffic.
Yeah, my concern.
We expect that it would be we wouldn't have an issue with queuing for cars waiting to exit the site.
I don't share that kind of assessment. I think that there's especially factor trying to turn left at certain times out of that area. There's not traffic control there, and you're dealing with in some cases a higher volume of traffic and turnaround at some hours than Captain C's would generate. So I do think that perhaps a solution is to allow more space for queuing traffic to exit. And perhaps that means moving buildings back, but I'm really concerned that it sounds like, especially left-turning traffic, which is the challenge, we might be able to have 2 vehicles that are finished in order, and that's about it. Another question, I have particularly on the runners, this is more of a comment. I don't know what the weather's like in Arkansas, but the weather today is not typical of Connecticut all the time. So
They have sites in Bastrop, New York, and other
following
places.
up to the safety of employees and customers and other things and inclement weather, I can't imagine how that operates, but I do know in some ways the idea of order takers at high peak areas is something that some fast food restaurants do, and they only do that on the nicer days. They don't do that in some, for example, if there's snow or rain or other adverse conditions.
To answer that question, we do have locations in northern, central locations in the U.S., such as Wisconsin. They do operate in cold conditions. We utilize space heaters as well, or heaters on the tops of the canopies that assist as well. So we are in cold climates and operate in a very similar manner. I will say too, in regards to the stacking, understanding your comments, Commissioner. Another thing though I might mention is that understanding we do have additional queuing capacity on the inbound lane as well. So obviously from an operations perspective, that wouldn't be ideal from operations and timing, but it does allow additional capacity on the inbound.
The microphone a
inbound
little
side
bit
as well.
closer, please. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions, Commissioner.
Other commission members? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
I had several questions, and I think to follow up on the previous comments. So just to confirm, this would be an inbound only entrance and an exit only, right? There's no cross traffic. I'm looking at the picture that was part of your application, and it was noted you are in an area where there's no traffic signals. You're next to a bank, you're next to a car wash, you're across from a coffee shop, and a strip plaza. So the center left lane, as I sometimes call it, the suicide lane in Route 5, is just very dangerous, But if your traffic is going to go in one side and out the other side, that works. Which brings me to my question, which you said in your comments to us February 7th, that you plan to discuss with the PZC at the next meeting the access easement. Because I'm a big fan of the access easement we have on Route 5, where we have other buildings interconnect so people can come out to to a traffic light. For example, your neighbor to the south, the car wash, that driveway connects all the way back to CVS and the traffic light.
It does.
So when the car wash was recently before us, we asked them to include an access easement, which they did.
They did not. They said they would, they did not.
Oh, okay. Then I'll be quiet. I'm looking for the story.
Tell us the story, Mr. Pagini.
So the access easement was required on the final plans, but the property owner never filed the easement back in 2010, and parking and landscaping was put where the access easement is supposed to be. So I think the logistics are they would have to correct that. They would have to file that access easement finally, and then remove some parking that I believe would make them under the minimum parking requirements on the site, and remove landscaping. So there are some logistics that would be involved, but it's not impossible.
So we've notified them that that's what they need to do?
Yeah, we can, if you want to go that route, if they feel it's necessary. I think the applicant didn't feel it was necessary, but
So I think because we have a single lane in and a single lane out and traffic, a specific traffic flow, I think creating an interflow between the sites to the north and south of us creates a problem where we now would have traffic going the wrong direction through our one-way site. And so my opinion on it from a traffic perspective and from a plan design perspective is that it wouldn't work. And we as as the applicant for this site, can't force the neighbor to do the things he was supposed to do. So we don't even have the right at the minute to access his site, if you will.
Well, I think it's important that, as far as having access easements, I know candidly, looking at your site, if you were to have an access easement to the south, realistically, very few people would use that, because if you're ordering your coffee, you're not going to use the access easement to get out. I understand that. But like with many of the properties or projects that we approve, we realize that much like Captain C's, that building's going to be gone. Not saying that your building is going to be gone in whatever, but at some point in time, it may get redeveloped. And it's a matter of having something in place. So in fact, if a property does get redeveloped, there's an access easement that's been provided. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why, the commission, looks for that, to have that easement. Not that it has to be, opened up at this point in time, because certainly on the south side, in my mind, it wouldn't make any sense. But to have it on that property, in case at some point in time, over the years, long before we're all gone, if that property does get redeveloped, in fact, there's a chance to have an access easement there on, both the north and the south. I think that's generally has been the commission's preference on that.
Okay, just as a quick response to that, this is a very, very specific building for a very specific use.
So is Captain C's.
Well, not really. Any kind of restaurant could go in Captain of the Seas. This is a far more specific use. And if this site were to be redeveloped, you would have that opportunity at that time to also request or make those access easements a part of that requirement. And also, where would I put them? Where should they be that makes the most sense for that future development that might happen? Should it be in the front? Should it be in the back? I think from a planning perspective, we're not removing your ability to require that on any future developer who wants to develop this site in a different way than what it is now. But if we put an easement at the back and they need it at the front later, then they could, they can provide that at that time if that makes more sense. So I think just providing an easement that's in an arbitrary location doesn't really necessarily make sense.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily in an arbitrary location. There's an access easement that's supposed to be provided, on the southern boundary of the property. So one can look to match up an access easement with that. That would seem to be a very logical way. I know, Mr. Fitzsimmons, you may want to comment.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would agree. I mean, I think this is the discussion, for Route 5 in particular, and I know you're not from town, but requiring the easements is a future planning effort, because that building won't always be there, we won't always be here, but when I was visiting the sites this weekend, I used the access easement from the car wash, through to, it all connects to the light. In this situation, I think it makes sense to, when the town planning office can correct the neighbor's property, as long as your property also has an easement. As the chairman said, it doesn't have to be built, but it has to be indicated on the plan, because plans change, uses change, right?
Okay.
So I would be in favor of requiring, as it is in our regs, requiring the access easement for the southern side of this to match up where it should be with the car wash. I don't know if it makes sense to request or require it on the northern piece, not knowing what's going to happen with Liberty, but it's not coming out to a traffic signal, but at least it would be on the records if and when things change 5, 10, years from now. And generally, to answer your question, most of the access easements are to the rear of the property. So, and I think it makes sense, and again, it's been raised by others, This is a busy section of Route 5 with no traffic signalization, other than the light at CVS.
Okay.
So I would be in favor of requiring the access easement to the north and south to match the car wash one and similar side of the other. It doesn't have to be built, but it has to be filed on the plan, so that way, that's it. And then I think, just to confirm, because you've said it on the record, it's a beverage-only restaurant, correct?
It is.
All right. So I know there's been a lot of questions about the drive-through queue and having, done enough hockey games with the boys and everything. If I'm back here, the queue, I'm not getting out of the queue until because I'm not getting my beverage till I'm in the orange zone. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to understand that. And the sidewalk will meet the state standards, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Any other commission members? Yeah, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really hung up on this runner striped area. And, as other comments, the weather isn't the greatest here. And it seems, I don't know if you've had, accidents in other sites. But it seems to me you could put some type of, and I don't want to change your business model, but I'm going to suggest it anyway. Put a, because it does make sense to me. And, the striped area with people running in between cars doesn't make sense to me. So, on your inner queue, you could have a little kiosk with the person with the tablet there. Now, I don't know how you would manage it, for the outer, queue to build the same thing. You'd have to, make the lane just a little bit bigger. But if it's going to support one person, I don't see too much of an issue doing that. And a striped area in between cars doesn't make sense to me. And, it's a safety concern when we do get sleet and snow. That thing's probably going to be covered up. It's going to be slippery. So, that's a concern. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you'd like to comment on that. I guess my question would be on that striped area that separates the two lanes. What's the width of that? I mean, it's more than just one line, correct? I mean, at least it looks that way on the plan.
It's 3 foot.
3 feet?
Yeah, the spacing here is 3 foot.
Again, when you're saying the spacing, that's the line, the hash line. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Discussions about the easement. Can we take the property, at least on the exit side, the building, can we take that building, the orange building there? Can we take that orange building and have the site plan require that building be moved back enough to allow realistically 4 vehicles to enter? Coupled with the easement discussion, I realize the challenges of the adjacent owner and easement, but if an easement was to be built, that would help with exit. In peak situations, people might decide to run through the loop and say there's too much traffic, I need to escape. It would also, by moving the building back, it would give options for both better traffic flow on exit at peak or busy times, as well as potentially access to a future easement should one be built. I'd like to add a suggestion that the building site plans be modified to have the building moved back to allow at least double the amount of cars to exit in a left turn. If possible.
I don't know if you gentlemen would like to comment on that. It seems, I guess, from
Yes, from a building perspective, it would be a concern to push this building back just from a visibility standpoint. It would challenge our operations.
You'd also lose stacking.
Yeah, there's some other challenges, I think, as far as the order points from coming into And there are a few challenges there with that. I think that would be a significant concern to us, pushing the building back any further.
And then I think there'd be an issue, Mr. Sanders, if you're talking about putting the easement in the front of the property, I think that would just simply create more of an issue, because there's the easement on the south side for the car washes in the back part of the property, not on the front part.
To be clear, the question was just about moving the order fulfillment side building back to allow for more cars to be queued, particularly in the left-hand lane. If an easement ever happened, I mean, that provides some options as well, but currently without any easement at all, we can stack, it looks like 2 cars coming out the left side and that's it.
What I might add is if the discussion is the easement in the rear, which I think that we can adjust this, we might lose a parking stall, and we can make that work, I think. I think on the front, I understand that the concern with the queuing and the exiting and the egress, but understand that regardless whether we move the building back or not, this dimension still stays the same. So what really happens is we have a bottleneck in our operations again. It's not so much that we're gaining more queuing or egress, stacking for the egress, but it's still the same number of cars, right? But it's just a matter of when the product is served, I guess, in the chain, if you would say. So I think by pushing the building back, it challenges our operations, but I'm not sure at the end of the day we're gaining any more space. What's happened in the scenario that you're mentioning, if that does happen, obviously then we start backing up. We have orders sitting, and we have customers that don't have their drinks, and obviously we're not operating in a manner that we want to, so that would be a concern to us. But I think, again, this site is very similar to a lot of sites that we're operating currently. We believe that the queue is actually a little bit in excess of what's required here. So we feel from an operational perspective and a corporate perspective that this site will function as needed to be efficient.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from commission members? If none, Mr. Pagini, any comments?
Let's see. I think you covered everything. Now, would you want to see the changes at the next meeting, or administratively, or how would you want to handle changes to the site plan?
Well, I think right now we're talking about, as far as changes, correct me if I'm wrong, commission members, it's providing the easements. Is that everyone's understanding?
Yep.
And I think that we already know where one easement should be.
Right.
That should line up with the, on the south. And the other easement would be more appropriate to have on the north in the back portion of the property.
Right. And this time, I think we would need the actual driveway to go up to the property line, so there's an actual physical driveway there. Because last time the easement was put on the plans, but it was never actually executed, and there's landscaping and parking put in place. So I think it makes sense to, as part of our regs, to extend the actual driveway to the property line, if those easements are going to be required. I could attest that Vestal, New York's definitely colder than here. I lived up there for 8 years, so. But the, and I think you answered basically all of my questions. I don't know if the commission had anything else.
Okay, again, this is it's a public hearing for members of the public who would like to speak on the application. Please raise their hand, come forward to the microphone. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the applicant, if the applicant would like to make any final comments before I close the public hearing.
Yeah, I would request that we be able to administratively show the easements on the site and not construct them at this time, but we'd be happy to set the site plan and file that on the land records to show the easements.
I think the commission members would agree on that. Would like to see the easements shown on the plans, much like we would like to have seen the easements shown on the plan on the car wash, but not to have them constructed at this particular point in time, but to have them designated on the plans. And I think that can be done, in conjunction with our town planner. At least in my mind, I don't think that there's a need to continue this, minor need.
Thank you very much.
Seeing that, if there's no further questions from commission members of the applicant, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for application 403-24, special permit drive-through retail restaurant, Kapoor 905 North Colony Road.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes. And now I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 403-4, special permit Kapoor 7 Brew, special permit request a site plan approval to demolish an existing building and construct a drive-through retail coffee shop on plans entitled Proposed 7 Brew Coffee Establishment dated January 5th, 2024, and revised to March 27th, 2024, subject to the following. 1, comments from the town planner dated January 26th, 2024. 2, comments from the senior engineer Scott Shipman, Water and Sewer Division dated January 31st, 2024. 3, comments from the town engineer Allison Kapczynski dated January 31st, 2024 and February 14th, 2024. 4, comments from the fire marshal dated January 31st, 2024. 5, erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $3,500. 6 copies of the final plan forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office. And 7, file access easements on plans to both the north and south side of the property per town planner.
We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Since this is a special permit, I'm still not convinced of the safety with this, striped area. I think there needs to be a little more maybe written into conditions of approval or something. So I'm going to vote no, just safety reasons. I don't think this is a very safe plan. No.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application's been approved. Have a good evening, gentlemen. And it brings us to our next item on our agenda, item number 5, special permit, exterior equipment, no building, hopper, above-ground conveyor and elevator tower, Fairdy Management Company, 155 East Street. And again, Mr. Allenson, if you would please read the legal notice and note all correspondence for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 405-24, special permit and floodplain development permit. Request for Fairdy Management Corporation to construct an above-ground conveyor and elevator tower at an existing fertilizer manufacturing operation at 155 East Street, I-40 Industrial Zone. We have a cover sheet of transmittals from Linden Landscape Architects. We have correspondence from Thomas Linden to Planning and Zoning Commission dated February 28th, 2024. Set of plans dated a receipt March 28th, 2024. Memorandum to the Inland and Wetlands Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission from the Department of Engineering dated February 28th, 2024. Correspondence from Kevin Pagini to Tom Linden dated March 1st, 2024. An inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department dated February 27th, 2024. An inter-office memorandum from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated March 5th, 2024. An inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department, dated March 28th, 2024. Interdepartmental comments from the Electrical Department, dated April 3rd, 2024. A memorandum from Aaron O'Hare, Environmental Planner, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated April 5th, 2024. Photos of the public notice signage. And correspondence from Thomas Linden to Allison Kapuscinski, Town Engineer, dated March 28th, 2024. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. If the applicant would please introduce himself and begin his presentation.
And hopefully you have a lot of mailing receipts too in the package. My name is Tom Linden, Linden Landscape Architects from Weathersfield, here representing Ferdy Management. With me, I have Scott Thibodeau, the plant manager, and Frank DeRosa, the project manager for this project. Ferdy is off of East Street, down behind Allegheny Steel, down by the energy plant down that way, all the way down by the river. So this is their property. North is up. Allegheny Steel's on this side. This is their property. Goes all the way out to the river. They're at the end of the driveway that comes down the hill. The existing building, employee parking, there's truck loading in the front. The road loops around. That's their traffic pattern for trucking. The area that we're proposing, the additional hopper elevator tower conveyor system is to the rear on the northeast side of the building, which is right here. And later on, we'll get into it in more detail and talk about the compensatory flood volume area is going to be on the west side of the building. There's currently storm drainage pipe from the roof and a little bit of the pavement in the back that goes out through a big riprap swale that goes out to the river. So the compensatory volume is going to be there. The blue highlighted line is the FEMA Zone AE line. So the regulatory floodway of the river is just outside the fence line, and all of that's the Zone AE. This is the Zone AE. The Zone AE comes in the back on the west side of the building, and there's some out to the front. So we are within the FEMA flood zone, and we're going to build the compensatory on this side. So the proposal is to, at the back of the building, to add a hopper and elevator tower for them when they receive the material. The trucks dump it into a hopper, it goes up the elevator onto the roof, and there's a thing that goes across the top and dumps it into individual bins inside the back of the building. That existing hopper is on this corner, and that has an elevator tower. There's two towers that are in the middle of the building. Those are the ones that you could just barely see from the road. If you're up at the softball field looking down, you can just see the tops of those. So, closer view, the back northeast corner of the building, existing. At the end of their employee parking lot, there's a driveway that goes around the back of the building that they built back in 2017 when they purchased the building and started this operation. Comes around the back of the building to the hopper that's on this side. So we're going to take down pine trees on this side. There's no changes to the existing pavement. It's all going to stay where it is now. There's a small detention basin right up here against the building that was required when they built this driveway connection from here to here. We're going to fill that in, and we'll get to showing you the detention basin that we're going to build on the other side, plus the compensatory volume. Sorry. Let me just go straight to the grading plan. So we're adding this piece of pavement off the edge of the existing driveway up to the building. Trucks will come in this direction, come around down the driveway and back into the hopper location that's at the back corner. They unload their trucks the same way they do at this one. It goes into a conveyor system that's totally enclosed, covered. Goes into a conveyor system to get to a new elevator tower that's basically in the middle of the back of the building. And the reason it's there so that they can run the, I don't know what to call it.
You can offload into the conveyor system that's existing within the building, and that just aligns with it, if you would.
It's a neat operation if you see it. It all comes down through the ceiling and goes into these really neat bins. So that's at that location. So they come around, the truck backs in, unloads, and drives back out. Currently, the trucks come in this direction to here, and they back into that one. So what we have, because we're within the FEMA zone, basically this pavement is going to be at existing grade. It matches the grade of the driveway. It fills this detention basin. So we took the volume of this basin that's required, plus the additional impervious surface we're putting in here. The drainage report shows what the before and after is. We're building a new detention basin on this side. So we're taking the volume that exists, putting it over here, and then we need this much more because of this pavement, and we're going over there. So we're building a relatively big detention basin, but it's shallow. So it needs to be that long. And the reason for that is the pipes we're connecting into. So all of this currently drains into this basin. It's now going to drain into a water quality structure, which basically is a manhole that has an insert in it that has a swirl chamber to take sediments out and drop them to the bottom. And there's also an oil separator filter in that basin. That collects the runoff from the driveway plus its pavement, pipes it over into the detention basin. There's an outlet structure from the detention basin that comes around the building and connects into the existing catch basin that's in the back that's picking up the low area of pavement that's here. That is an existing pipe that connects into an existing pipe that comes off of Allegheny that daylights out into the river. And based on the inverts, that this needed to be shallow. In terms of the amount of fill that we're doing on here, so it's 3,654 square feet of additional pavement. So for the FEMA area, we're filling approximately 3,900 cubic feet of volume in this basin, and within the FEMA line, we're cutting 2,300, give or take, cubic feet of volume, which gives us a net of 1,600 cubic feet that we now need to supply as compensatory volume elsewhere. So the way we're doing that is on the west side of the building, where the riprap outfall currently exists. We're going to take an area here, and basically we're just going to lower it. So it's roughly a 50 by 60 foot area. We're going to drop it a foot, which is going to give us 3,000 cubic feet of volume when we only need to provide 1,600. And basically it's just easier to take a foot off than to take 9.2 inches off. So we're providing a little bit more, well, we're providing almost double what we need to provide, but we're doing that here. This will tie in with the riprap here so that if the river ever flooded all the way up to this point, it flows into that area and flows back out of that area. Further on the plans, there's a detail of how that water quality structure thing works with the swirl chambers and the oil filter. Basic construction details. Erosion control plan with a general sequence of constructions. One of Kevin's comments was, what do you do if it rains while you're under construction? So we added a few more notes on here, and back on the compensatory plan, there's specific notes for how to build that area and build it quickly and get it stabilized quickly, so in case it floods. So basically, what we're saying here, their intention is to build it this summer. So August, hopefully, September, when it's drier, but we know how August goes. You're going to get 4 inches of rain in an hour in an afternoon. But it's better than this past month was. So we added some notes that if there's an impending storm coming on, that whoever's doing the construction needs to stop. They need to get ready ahead of time, check their erosion controls, make sure everything's functioning correctly before it rains, rather than have to clean up the mess afterwards. In terms of the towers, so this is flipped from the way the plan is. This is the back of the building. The existing hopper is on this side. This is the side they're talking about doing. So the driveway's coming in here. This is north. So backs up to the hopper, goes up the conveyor into the tower that brings it up onto the roof. So if you're looking at the rear elevation, this is looking from the north towards, this is at the building. Currently, there's 2 towers in the middle of the building that are approximately 85 feet tall. Those were permitted back when they bought the building and built this. The existing hopper on this side is a 56-foot tall tower. That's the existing. And then this one would be 65 feet, so it's a little bit taller than that one, but much shorter than these. So that's what we're here for, is the 65-foot tower. That's just a section through the building that shows the thing runs back and forth on this neat little track up in the ceiling and drops into all the individual bins. That's being brief. Hopefully.
Thank you. And that would be the extent of your presentation, is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commission members with questions for the applicant. Mr. Pacini, any comments, questions?
No further comments.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Any members of the public would like to come speak on the application, please come forward with name and address.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jim Wolf. I'm a member of the Economic Development Commission, and Tim Ryan and I looked at this plan, and we are definitely in support of it. This has been a good company for the town. If you remember back prior to 2017, this was a vacant building that they brought back to life, and prior to that, it was the spa building where they used to build the jacuzzis or whatever, but it was empty for a long time. They brought it back to life. They've been a good neighbor in Wallingford. They don't bother anything down there. And this tower, you won't even see it from the ball field. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members from the public? Seeing none, there's no further comments from commission members. The applicant has no further comments. First, I'd just like to make a comment to the applicant. Just to build on what Mr. Wolf had said, certainly this property in general is pretty much of a beat-up property. Certainly the building that's in front of you certainly needs some tender loving care. And I just appreciate the fact that you folks took over your existing building that you're in. You've done the improvements, and now you're looking to expand. And certainly, as I think it was mentioned, I doubt that there's very many people that know you folks are there. But anyway, if there's no further comments from anyone, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for application 405-24, special permit, exterior equipment, no building, hopper, above ground, conveyor, and elevator tower, Ferdy Management Corp., 155 East Street.
Do we have a second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting, beginning with Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
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 And yes, now I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 405-24, special permit, site plan approval, and floodplain development permit request to demolish an existing detention basin to construct a hopper, above-ground conveyor, and elevator tower, and new drainage basin on plan entitled Proposed Receiving Conveyor and Site Improvements dated February 8, 2024, and revised to March 28, 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1, comments from the town engineer, Allison Kapuscinski, dated February 28, 2024. 2, comments from the fire marshal, dated February 27, 2024. 3, comments from environmental planner Aaron O'Hare, dated April 5, 2024. 4, erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $3,200. And 5, 6 copies of the final plan forward to the Planning and Zoning Office.
Do I have a motion on the application? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, your application's been approved. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, it brings us to our next item on our agenda. It's item number 6, site plan for a retail restaurant at 124 Church Street, Yalesville. Again, Mr. Allenson, if you'd please note all correspondence for the record while the applicant is preparing for his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have interdepartmental comments from Inland and Wetlands dated January 24th, 2024. Correspondence from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, to Erica Roca dated January 29th, 2024. Memorandum from the Department of Engineering to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated February 5th, 2024. An interoffice memorandum, from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated January 31st, 2024. Inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department, dated January 31st, 2024. Interdepartmental comments from the Electric Division, dated March 18th, 2024. Inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department, dated March 22nd, 2024. Interdepartmental comments from the Electric Department, dated April 3rd, 2024. Memorandum from the Department of Engineering to Planning and Zoning Commission, dated April 4th, 2024. Correspondence from Kermit Hua to Erica Roca, dated January 25th, 2024. Correspondence from the Wallingford Police Department, Chief Ventura's office, signed by Chief Ventura, date of receipt January 30th, 2024. Correspondence from Giuliano Associates to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated March 15th, 2024. And a set of site plans, date of receipt March 27th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. If the applicant's representative now, please begin his presentation.
Good evening. Again, for the record, my name is Christopher Giuliano, licensed land surveyor and professional engineer with the firm of Giuliano Associates. I maintain an office at 405 Main Street in the Yalesville section of town. The application before you tonight is for a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through. Most of you, I believe, are very familiar with the site. This used to be the Duchess Restaurant on Route 68, also known as Church Street. Just for orientation purposes, property is here on the north side of Church Street, aka Route 68, which is running right here. Warehouse Point Road is right across from the site here. So basically, the existing the existing restaurant had a one-way in on the east side, parking and circular flow that went from the east to the west, and then an exit only out on the west side. For the proposed Dunkin' drive-through, we are going to be keeping the same traffic pattern. However, since this is only a drive-through restaurant, no customer seating, we are able to cut down on the amount of parking required for the restaurant use. So what the applicant is going to be taking about half of the existing building, basically the west side. The east side of the existing building will be for a future tenant, and we've basically allocated parking based upon retail or service use, since that'll be the most intense. And then there's also two proposed additions, one on the east side of the building, and that is for a second tenant, and then a small addition on the back for the Dunkin' Donut coolers. So what we're going to have is our entrance across from Warehouse Point Road. We actually have a double queue stacking entry. We have a double order board here at the northeast corner of the building. Cars will come around, pick up their order on the west side, and then exit onto the west, either taking a right out and heading west on Route 68, or taking a left and heading east. Since we have a reduction of parking for the site because of the use, we are able to significantly change the parking here at the easterly side of the building. So we have our 2 drive-through lanes, as I mentioned, for stacking purposes. We have our bypass for both emergency vehicles, employees, and anyone that would be coming for the future 2 tenants. And we've provided parallel parking along the eastern side. Basically, the applicant has found that sometimes people come in with a truck, an oversized trailer, and these spaces are adequate for them so that they can pull in, get their coffee, and get out. There'll be no parking along the rear side of the building because we're using that for our bypass and emergency vehicle area. It will be signed for no parking as per the fire marshal. We are relocating our dumpster off from the rear of the northwest corner into the existing pavement area, and we've reconfigured the parking on the westerly side. We've also added a grass paved parking area at the behest of the fire marshal. The fire department wants to be able to pull up in front of this building and get quick access. So they'll be able to come around, pull in, or if necessary, enter in the one way out and pull right up and gain access to the front of the building. With respect to grading and utilities, we're not really changing any surface elevations on the site. We are removing quite a bit of pavement, and we did provide you with a DCIA map, which is direct connect impervious areas as part of the stormwater regulations. About the only utility we're really adding is we're going to have a new oil water separator, grease trap on the west side connecting into the existing sanitary sewer. We did do an evaluation of the storm drainage at the behest of the town engineer. We did issue a report, and then we found that everything is actually in very good working condition. The only real recommendation we had was the cleanup of the outlet at the back of the parking area. There's actually a pallet back there, and there's a bunch of overgrown debris that needs to be cleaned out, but there's no erosion in the area. The riprap is very largely sized, and it's holding steady. As part of the staff comments, particularly from the town engineer and the police chief, they were concerned about the exiting of the site. Even though it is an existing restaurant, or was an existing restaurant that had been in business for a long time, there was question over site distance. So we went out there, we did our measurements, we provided an overlay, and we were able to achieve site distance both to the west and the east, not only for passenger vehicles, delivery trucks, but also tractor trailers. So we are able to see, and I know on the east side, because we have Route 15, there was a question on where if the overpass and the curvature of the road would be an issue. So when we were out there, we actually took some pictures, and those are on the plan as well, looking left and looking right, so that you can actually see that a car can see to the east for any oncoming traffic from the overpass. As I said, we produced the DCIA calculation as part of our stormwater analysis. We are actually reducing the site from 31,000 square feet of impervious down to 22,000 square feet of impervious. So about a one-third a reduction on the overall runoff and pavement on the site. And then lastly, as part of our conversations with town planner and the police chief, we did provide a drawing showing the amount of cars that can be queued up on the site. There are 29 cars that can fit basically from the pickup area, basically to the property line, and we stopped the second row a little shorter, just so we had the area to go by with any kind of bypass vehicle. Other than that, I would entertain any questions.
Questions from commission members on the application? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, this is a question for the town planner.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. The police chief mentioned, there's a lot of traffic there, and I can attest to that. Going through there at 5 p.m., it's really backed up. And in your comments, you discussed the no left turn and decided it would not be necessary. And I was just wondering what the ultimate deciding factor in that was. And then, the police chief also mentioned about adding an overhead traffic light. I'm not sure, based on my experience, that would help too much based on the volume there. But I was just wondering what the rationale was, how that was decided.
I can't put words in the mouth of the town engineer or the police chief, but the town engineer didn't feel it was necessary, and the police chief felt, after further conversations with the actual applicant, who isn't present, but he had given some examples from other restaurants that people sort of disobey it anyway. The traffic isn't fast there, so there wasn't that issue. I mean, the traffic does back up, but it's basically dead stopped at a lot of the peak times. As far as the other rationale, I'm not sure that was basically it. And also, it was a lot of people just wouldn't probably obey it anyway. So I guess there was a lot of that at his other restaurants where they don't obey the left turn or right turn only. So there was a bunch of considerations, and after, if you need confirmation from the police chief, I can certainly get that in writing to you. The memo from the town engineer was on behalf of the LTA. She's a liaison to the LTA, so it was on behalf of both of them that they agreed to the site changes as is.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Any other commission members?
If I could, through you, Mr. Chairman, I guess I would agree with Commissioner Cohen's comments. I'm a little confused. Having, I could say, never received an email from the chief of police. I was surprised that there was no subsequent update from the chief other than the memo from the town engineer. And the town engineer, I note, does not provide conditions of approval other than to say everything's been adequately addressed, comments made in my February 5th, 2024 memo. So I guess I would, as just one person, I would like something new from the chief of police and something new from the town engineer on are there any conditions of approval, because the memo dated April 4th doesn't have any conditions, but the email from the chief of police did kind of raise some concerns, as Mr. Cohen said, including the idea of overhead traffic. So while generally I get it, it's a drive-through only Dunkin', we're learning a lot about coffee shops tonight. I am, and I guess because it would be a shared plaza, because it wouldn't just be for Dunkin' to be a future tenant. I was initially looking at the parking, but if you can't go inside Dunkin' Donuts, right? Is that my understanding?
That is correct.
All right. So you're providing 23 spaces of the 19 that are required. But I would feel more comfortable because of the site to get a fresh dated memo from the chief. And I don't know, unless I missed it, was there something from the fire marshal's office?
Yeah, he actually went out and made the site change revisions. So that's the 322 as per the fire marshal. He actually physically went to the site.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I guess part of it is the chief's memo wasn't retracted by the chief. It was just referenced by the town engineer. And her memo, her two-page memo on February 5th says satisfied. So my question through the chair to the town planner, are there any conditions of approval suggested by the town engineer?
There are none by the town engineer, no.
I'd like to see.
So her memo, the way that she explained it to me was that she was satisfied with all of the changes to the site as is. So she is satisfied. I can understand you wanting more from the chief 100%, but she didn't have any further conditions from what expressed to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Again, just before I get to the applicant, I know, Kevin, you and I, Mr. Pagini, you and I had a discussion on this morning concerning, the chief's memo, and I know there was a general feeling, I guess, that, the April 4th, 2024 memo from the engineering department kind of addressed, the whole issue with the chief's comments, but because it references her the issues that were in the February 5 memo, the chief's comments were not in there. So I just think it's important going forward that when we have comments from any department, especially from public safety, that if they've expressed their comments and then they're saying these concerns have been addressed, that we have that from them, so we have that sense of confidence that in fact it's there. And it's the same thing when we have final plans that are given to various departments. If they just simply say, and it could be 2 sentences, that I've reviewed the final comments, final whatever plans, final comments from the applicant, and I have no further comments, and I agree with them. So I think that would be, it certainly would be beneficial. But with that, I know the applicant would like to make some comments.
Thank you, Chairman. Definitely, I appreciate your comments, because that's sometimes, on this side of the table, not having that approval letter is a problem as well. I just going to go through just a little timeline. As you know, we didn't come before you last month because there was the issue with the police chief regarding sightline and traffic. At that time, we had a single lane. We had perpendicular parking here on the easterly side. So the applicant met with the town planner and the police chief, and that's when we came up with the dual way into the queue, and changed the parking on the east side to parallel so we could get more cars on site. And I believe that was one of his major concerns. I know the police chief, and it got kicked around about no left turn. I believe that our site distance analysis, which we produced at that time, and that he was able to review with the town planner and the applicant, addressed that. The light, yes, that got kicked around as well, but as you understand, this is a state road. We can ask for a light on the local side, but it comes down to whether or not the state is going to grant it or allow it to go in. We do have a light to the east. We do have a light to the west. Yes, it does back up in this area at times. The one thing about the Duncan, their peak is in the morning, not necessarily in the afternoon. So that's got a little bit of logistics to it. And that was my 3.7 revision. I also have a 3.22 revision, and that dealt with the fire chief and basically the access around, signage on the rear, and his grass paved fire lane in the front. So I just wanted to kind of put that in perspective, that we did address these comments from them, and it is unfortunate. I know the fire marshal did get us out an email and a memo, because I got that as well. It would have been nice if the police chief had as well, and I think what the town engineer did is try to wrap it up in a little bow, but I think her February comments basically dealt with the removal of the pavement, the on-site storm drainage, and there is a bit of confusion, so I do understand it, and I'm on the same page as you. If we could get these comments, it would be nice, but I just wanted to kind of explain things for the commission so you understood how the evolution over the month of March happened.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, and I don't think anyone on this commission is kind of disputing what might have been discussed. It's just a matter of, the fact is we have certain exhibits that we have before us that state certain things, and then there's nothing that kind of follows up on that as far as retracting them or just simply saying everything, I've looked at everything, there's no issues, I have no further comments. I think that's what commission members are really looking for. It's not to question someone's, I don't want to use the word truthfulness, but representation as far as what took place. It's just, if we're wrapping up a package, maybe putting another ribbon on it. So,
Understood.
with that, any other questions from commission members? Yes, Mr. Allenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very familiar with this site. It's right down the street from my office, and I've been known to have gotten 1 or 2 hot dogs from Duchess when they were there. So I know what it's like to take a left turn and a right turn out of the existing parking lot there. And generally, the right turns are not problems. It's the left. And I'm glad to hear about the sight lines because the existing was an issue. My question is on not so much on the ingress, but the egress part of the build. Is that going to stay the same width as what's existing there, or is that contracting?
Nope, it is going to stay the same width. So basically, you could have cars queuing up to take a left, you could have cars queuing up to take the right. We're not going to shrink it down at all. In fact, really, the only work about parking or pavement is really inside the site. Those driveways are going to stay as is.
Okay, and the other question I had, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but I'm going to ask it, is on the egress, is there going to be do not enter?
Oh, yes.
Posted? I just didn't see it.
There's existing signage out there that say exit and enter. We actually have to move them back a little bit because this one on the egress is kind of in the way a little bit. So yes, we're going to have them. We'll get the do not enter signs and everything will be properly signed and outside of a sightline triangle as well.
Excuse my language for this, but the existing signage is a bit janky. So a new signage up there would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Could you explain that?
Janky.
I understand it perfectly. I know that term quite well.
Okay. Yeah, me neither. All right, if there's no further questions, comments from commission members, I take it the applicant has no further comments. I think it's fair to say that we're looking to continue this to our next meeting because we'd like to see those comments. I guess that would be my preference. I don't know how other commission members feel about it. So at this point in time, I just entertain a motion to continue this application to our next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue application 201-24, site plan retail restaurant 124 Church Street, Yalesville.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And before we go to the rest of the agenda, Mr. Pagini, as far as our next month's meeting, I didn't see any receipts. Do we have any applications or?
No, we did not receive any receipts this month.
So it would appear that this item would be one of the items of the agenda, and the other item would be perhaps the
1136, yep.
Yeah, the Sunwood development, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
So that would seem to be the agenda. All right. All right, if you would take us through the rest of the agenda, please.
Bond release at 654 North Colony. It looks as though the landscaping is established, so I can release that bond. That's fine.
Excuse me?
I can. We can release that bond.
Okay. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to release the bond on 654 North Colony Road.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we release the bond on 654 North Colony Road, G. Gallo.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to reports of officers and staff.
Administrative approvals. Any questions on those? Any questions on ZBA decisions or ZBA notice? Quarterly zoning enforcement report. Just to let you know, we are moving potentially to an an online permitting and enforcement system, so you may be able to view all of the, hopefully in the upcoming half a year or so, all of the complaints and enforcement action online at your leisure. And we'll be able to print out reports of that. So that's where we're discussing, and hopefully we're moving towards that relatively soon.
Any commission members, any questions on any of the items? Seeing none, we're probably going to make it for the second half of the NCAA championship game. If someone would like to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close or adjourn the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commissioning for Monday, April 8th,
Do we have a second?
2024.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.